Exams. This word brings stress and excitement among students when they hear the word exam. The atmosphere becomes a little serious, and students' hard work is all what matters while appearing in the examination. In reality, examination do not mean creating a feeling of depression among students, but these are intended to develop a sense of responsibility among those learners to remember the concepts and present them in the most valuable form. It also helps us to identify our gaps and opens up our further avenues of learning. Above all, it teaches us many good traits like punctuality, time management, power of toleration, and perseverance. As the situation due to COVID-19 pandemic being faced by the students, teachers, and schools is unprecedented. Therefore, Education Ministry has decided to cancel the board exam for class 10, and the evaluation will be on the basis of objective criterion developed by the board. And for class 12, it is still uncertain. The final decision is expected to come in few days. But looking at the decision, what are the best ways to assess students through internal assessment? And what are the different opportunities which are there for the students for their established career without board exams? To know this, we at Indianica Learning are taking this initiative today to spread the awareness through our panel of experts on the most important subject matter, roadmap for the future without board exams. A very good evening, namaskar, sastriyakal, adab to one and all. My name is Swarup Beniwal, your host and moderator for the day. Welcome you all into the 7th Learning and Educational Leadership Talk series on Roadmap for the Future Without Board Exams. I hope you all are safe and healthy and taking good care of yourself. Well, today in this special session, we are honored to have esteemed panel with us, Shri Anil Swarup sir, who is the former Secretary School Education Government of India, as our honored chief guest, along with Dr. Radha Singh and Miss Stella, Pauline, Punitha.J as our esteemed panelists. And now I would like to introduce the Managing Director and CEO, Indianica Learning, Mr. Sumit Gupta, with all of you. Well, Mr. Gupta is a graduate in Commerce and Law, an alumnus of IIM Calcutta, and a member of FICCI's Publishing Committee. He has been into education sector for around 2 decades. I request Mr. Gupta to please join us and say a few words to our wonderful audience. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Swarup. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to a brand new interactive session under our series, Learning and Education Leadership Talk series. I hope everyone is safe, healthy, and is following all the precautions that are required to be followed during the current situation. We saw a spurt over last few days, about 6 weeks or so in the cases, and now they are coming under control. That's a great situation. However, we can't let our guard down. So we have to take all the precautions that are required. Today's session, which is the 7th one in this series, is on a very important topic, which is critical and is relevant today to almost everyone in the country, whether it be a parent, a student, teacher, educator, academician, state government, central government, or various state boards. The board exams are 2 words which are giving sleepless nights to the students and their concerned parents. Right now, there is no clarity on the class 12 board exams. While discussions have been going on, some clarity has come in. Class 10th board exams have been cancelled. And over the years, if we see, it has become almost a rite of passage for the students. Because after class 10th, these are the 2 years in which students choose what career they will take, what stream they will take. And this becomes all the more very critical that these exams are conducted in the right manner and in the right time. So, when I go back to my school days, many times we used to wish, what if our exams were cancelled? Well, jokes apart, cancellation or changes of the board exams do bring up a lot of challenges, a lot of questions. And I'm sure as educators and parents, there'll be a lot of concerns and a lot of questions that you may have. And that is what we are trying to address today through our esteemed panel and our chief guest on the roadmap for the future without board exams. If yes, right now there's a possibility that the class 12 exams may happen. The government has already clarified that. There's a PIL pending in the Supreme Court of India, which will be heard on Monday. Some states have already gone ahead and cancelled the board exams. Some are still considering other ways. So what will happen when these are going to happen? How do these impact? We will discuss this today, which is a very, very critical and important topic. Today, we are fortunate to have with us speakers who can help us with these questions and concerns. To begin this session, I would like to welcome our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Anil Swarupji, who is former Secretary, School Education, Government of India. Welcome, sir. Shri Anil Swarup is the author of Not Just a Civil Servant and an experienced public servant with a demonstrated history of working in coal and education sectors. Before joining the IAS in 1981, he served the IPS for a year. He won the Director's Gold Medal at the LBS National Academy of Administration amongst the officers of his batch. As a strategic thinker and an innovative leader, he has won several awards and nominations. Welcome, Shri Anil Swarupji.
Good afternoon.
He will be joined by panelists Dr. Radha Singh, former principal, who is a master trainer in CBSE workshops, is also a curriculum developer with NCERT. She's a mentor and educational coach. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We have also with us today Miss Stella Pauline Punitha.J, who is principal of Schram Academy, Chennai. She is also CBSE Center of Excellence resource person. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And over to you, sir. I would invite Shri Anil Swarupji to say, take over the sections. Thank you.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I'm so glad that you selected this topic relating to exams. So what I'll try and do is first touch upon the exams in general, and then look at the current scenario as to what are the possible options available with the government. Having been in that hot seat for a couple of years, I can visualize the difficulties that the decision makers would be facing now in the context of holding or not holding or holding a different type of exam. These are not very easy decisions. If they were easy decisions, they would have been taken by now. These are very, very tough decisions, because whichever decision you take, there will always be a negative side to it, and there will always be criticism. And hence, perhaps they are mulling over it, and they have not yet decided on at least class 12 examination. Class 10, they have decided, because class 10 is not so consequential in terms of the future course that a child has to take. Class 12 is very, very critical, because based on the marks that you obtain in class 12, the admissions to various universities happen. It's a different matter that when I was Secretary, Government of India and School Education, I discovered that the marks that are actually given to the child are not the real marks that he or she gets. In fact, in my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, I write a chapter on it, and I call it the farcical delusion. Why a farcical delusion? Because I discovered, when I took over as school education secretary, that a child could get 100 out of 100 in English literature and Hindi literature. I was quite shocked, because I couldn't ever visualize that anybody could get 10% marks in literature. You know, Shakespeare must be turning in his grave, because it's, to my mind, it's impossible for anyone to perfect the score, but you got it. And then that led to a further investigation, which I discovered. To my horror, I found that children were being given additional marks beyond what they actually got. So a child who got around 85% would end up getting around 95% marks or 94% marks. This is not to disparage the value. What I'm trying to say here is, we were not conveying to the child his true assessment. We were conveying to him an assessment beyond. And that is why these children, when they joined the graduate classes, some of them went through a bit of a psychological trauma, because they thought they were the best around, or they were so good but they found that they weren't as good, because that's where the real competition comes in. So I tried to correct that. I called all the chairpersons of all the state boards and the CBSE and ICSE and had a chat with them, and they came, the rationale that they gave was very interesting one. They said, sir, everyone is happy with these marks. The teacher is happy, the child is happy, the parents are happy, the schools are happy, the politicians are happy, the states are happy. Everyone is happy. Everyone was happy with this farcical delusion. And that's why I term it as farcical delusion. So I said, we should stop this nonsense. We should tell the child what he or she is worth rather than deluding him or her. So they agreed. They agreed, and two boards actually brought down marks to the realistic level, meaning thereby they gave marks to the child what the child deserved rather than spiking those marks. There was chaos actually thereafter. Almost everyone protested. And of course, I didn't listen to those protests because I was not, I was not agreeing to this farcical delusion. But what actually happened was some of the guys went to the court, and court granted a stay. So we argued and said that if it is wrong, it should be stopped. If it is right, it should be continued. But they were fully aware of the fact that Mr. Anil Swarup would retire in the next 3 months, and then no one will question it. I think that is how it happened, because during the last year, when I saw the marks again, I was again shocked to see number of students getting 100 out of 100 in English literature and Hindi literature. So the farcical delusion continued. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because examinations are important. You can't, I mean, as a student, even I wanted no examination because that took off a huge burden on my head. But then life itself, you come across so many examinations. The better one gets used to, or the earlier one gets used to these burden, or why should we treat it as burden? But whatever it is, examinations are essential to assess a child. We can discuss about the manner in which examination happens. That, of course, is something which I'd like to delve upon even now. But some sort of an assessment has to be there. The other delusion that we had in our country was borrowed from Finland. And in the law, we mandated that no child will be detained. Now, I'm not for detaining children. They should not be detained, actually. But then mandating it centrally by Government of India for all other states to take that call was wrong to my mind. I think this decision should have been left to the states. And that's how we got the act amended. And under the garb of not detaining a child, what a large number of schools did, they stopped examination. Now, the legislation did not say that you should not take examination. So the assessment also stopped. So every child got promoted till he came across class 10, and that's where all hell broke loose. And despite the leniency on account of this farcical delusion that I was mentioning, a large number of children flunked, they failed. And you have a situation where a child has gone up to class 7, 8, and 9 and doesn't know the basis of class 3, 4, and 5 because he was never assessed. Now, the legislation does not say that you will not assess. In fact, it talked about continuous assessment. But under the garb of not detaining the child, even the teachers were not getting assessed because the child was not getting assessed. We are great at reinterpreting the provisions of law and to our benefit, and it is not to our benefit. In fact, it is to our loss. So this is the background why I mentioned this, because I think we've already made exams unnecessarily hawa. If it were not that big a hawa or a burden, I think people would not, or children would not mind going to the exam. But the tragedy is that the national education policy talks of 5 examinations, board examinations, class 3, 5, 8, 10, and 12. I was a bit shocked because it's contrary to the philosophy of the national education policy, where they're talking in terms of easing the burden on the child. Now, I'm all for examination. I'm not against examination. But if examination becomes a burden and the child studies only for examination, then there is a problem. I'll tell you a personal experience. I did my intermediate and I had science subjects, and then I switched over to humanities. And I was quite shocked again to see that we were focusing on 10 questions. We're not studying. Because we looked at the question papers of the previous years and there was a trend, and we could actually guess which 10 questions will come this year. Or at least we have to do only 5. So if you prepared those 10 questions, sure enough, you'll get those 5 questions. Now, what sort of a learning is this? So we were preparing ourselves only for examination. So that is something, there is something basically wrong with the examination system that we have. I'm all for examination, but the manner in which we examine the child, I have my serious reservation, because then the child is studying for examinations, either for class 10, 12, or for his IIT qualification. There also, he's studying for examination, and that's why you have these coaching centers. The good news again is that the National Education Policy attempts to address these issues. It talks about holistic learning. It talks about areas where the child evolution, his development appears or is given more importance. Whether it will happen or not, it's a different matter. Because in our country, the problem is not with policies, but the manner in which policies get implemented. And I don't want to spend time on that, because that's another huge area where one can talk about the problems with the implementation of such wonderful ideas that are a part of this policy. So coming back to the primary topic that we are discussing today, relating to the examinations that we are talking of. Now, we have got stuck in a situation, and I've always believed if a situation like this arises, we should see how we can make the best of it. In fact, I see it as a huge opportunity for correcting our examination pattern or system. Let us first discuss what are the possible ways in which the current exam can be held, or class 12 exam, and then let us discuss what could be the possible way forward using technology for examination. These are the two aspects that I'd like to discuss, and some of you may be interested in it. Now, this year, there is a whole school of thought which says that examination should be cancelled. Now, that's the easiest and the most difficult decision to take. Easiest in the sense, don't have any exam, no one has to do anything. But the difficult is the consequences thereof, what will happen thereafter, because you can't leave a child blank that he's just passed class 12. What about admissions to various other levels which have to happen on the basis of the marks that you get here? So you have to have some sort of an assessment in class 12. Now, there could be a huge debate as to what should be the nature of assessment. No, my first view is, and may not be a very popular one, that we should have a regular exam. Regular exam, and I have suggested that. I have suggested that in the social media. I mean, it's being discussed. What I have suggested is that this examination should be held 2 to 3 months down the line. During that period, all the eligible children would be around 18 years. I mean, some of them could be 17 years, but certainly not less than 17 years. Anyone who's giving class 12 exam cannot be less than 17 years. So that relaxation can be given. They should be inoculated on priority. This can be done. Because if they are inoculated, then actually with social distancing and all, the examinations can still be held. That's my solution to it. There could be other views on that, but I have yet to come across a better view. What is being suggested otherwise is some sort of an objective type of question paper. Now, I have my reservations about objective type of questions. The reason is that how do you have an objective type question in a subject like English literature or Hindi literature? You can't. You have to write something there for anybody to assess what you are capable of. Even otherwise, objective type questions have serious limitations. And secondly, even for objective type questions, the child will have to go somewhere, physically. I will talk about how technology can be used, but that technology cannot be put to use now. We require some time. In fact, I had given the suggestion last year that we can have the technology where the child need not have to go to the school to give the examination. I'll come to that later on, and that could be the future of examination in this country. But that also has limitations, and I'll come to that as well. So right now, what I am looking at is that class 12 examinations certainly should not be cancelled for very obvious reasons. The alternative, as some people say, is an objective type. Yes, you can do that, but I am not personally in favor of that. I would rather have a regular examination to assess the child in a regular manner. And that can be done if the children are vaccinated on priority. Because whatever I read on the social media, that if there is a third wave, and there are chances that there would be, the chances are that children may be affected in the third wave. I don't know how far it is correct. This is all based on hearsay and little knowledge that I have on the basis of what I read on social media. I may be totally wrong. But my contention is, if these examinations can and should happen, they should happen through inoculating all our children who are appearing in class 12. This is eminently doable because numbers are not huge. We can do that, and I think that would be well worth it. The other option could be that, as some people are discussing on objective type, you can quickly have those exams. You don't have to sit there for 3 hours and write that. I'm not an expert at examination, so I won't know. I think the other two experts would be able to delve more upon it and suggest as to what is the manner in which examinations can be held. Coming to future, this year somehow it will have to be managed. As I said, these are not easy decisions. But if you plan for the future, you can have different type of examination. Let's look at the SAT and the CAT and the MAT examinations. There, you hardly have any coaching institutes, no? You hardly have any coaching institutes. It is assessing a particular aspect of a child. I'm not saying adopt that, but if you modify that and customize that, that sort of an examination could be held even for our regular exam. It could be, and today technology exists. In fact, a child can go to a designated place, and these designated places need not be schools and colleges. There could be any kiosk they can go, and it could be worked out where they can give this exam. The SAT, MAT, and CAT, you can do that. You can go to designated kiosk and give that exam. Of course, the volume here, unlike SAT, CAT, and MAT, will be huge. So there will be logistic issues, there will be other issues, but they can be worked out. If the planning is done in advance, I think this examination system can undergo a change. So the child then will not have to prepare for the exam per se, because in SAT, CAT, and MAT, you can't do prepare much. It tests those aspects of your understanding, comprehension, that you cannot mug up and go and write something there. So it has a different way of examination. Again, I'm not an expert, as I said, of examining children. I think experts would be in a better position. Generally, what I can say is that this gives us an opportunity to look at the entire examination system that we have now. We teach the child something else in class 12, and hence the child has to go for coaching to appear in an IIT for JEE and the other medical examination. Why is it so? Why can't we have first change the examination or entrance examination there so that the child does not have to study separately for those examinations and go to coaching centers? I'm sure we can do that. I mean, I'm just comparing these IIT G and other examination with SAT, CAT, and MAT. I have not seen so many coaching institutes where children go and learn them. So we can first modify the nature of entrance exams, modify the nature of class 12 examination, so that it is in sync with what the child has to do in future, and he doesn't have to go to a coaching institute. This COVID provides us that opportunity to have a look at the examination system that we have now. And that will help us, because earlier, say about 10 years ago, we couldn't think in terms of changing the pattern so much because we didn't have the technology at that point in time. Today we have the technology. Today we have the internet. However, there could be an issue with regard to such schools where internet is not available, or such children who do not have access to internet. Now this, if we plan for next 2-3 years, I'm certain in next 2-3 years, again, thanks to COVID, we'll have internet connectivity throughout the country. Because the way government is going about it, providing internet, I'm certain that in next 2-3 years, we'll have internet throughout the country. So that will not be an issue, say 2 to 3 years down the line. So when we are talking in terms of examination or revisiting the examination system, I don't think it will happen tomorrow or day after. It will take about a couple of years before it starts getting implemented. But I think the experts have to sit down and look at use of technology for this. Now, I will stop here because I would rather give space to the experts who know more about examination and how to go about it. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and I'm compliments to you for having chosen this topic, which is hot. Actually, everyone is really certainly very legitimately concerned about what's going on in the examination. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for these wonderful ideas and suggestions. Absolutely, these are very, very helpful for our audience to to understand the benefits and the plan which they can do at their school level, or they can understand. Absolutely, as you said, manner of exam can be discussed, but the exams are very important. A preparation should not be only for examination, but for their whole life. These are absolutely marvelous. It's every time whenever we listen to you, sir, we get inspired. And thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful suggestions. Moving on. Now, it is the time to introduce and invite our esteemed panelist who has earned enormous respect in her chosen career, Dr. Radha Singh. Having secured a PhD in education and training from Commonwealth University in New Zealand, she is instrumental in intensifying professional development of educators. She is a former principal, over 36 years of involvement in the field of education with all the stakeholders. She is primarily a transformational leadership developer and education coach, mentor for school heads, management, teachers, and education business owners. She is the recipient of several awards, including Transformational Leadership Development Award given by an international organization affiliate to UN, Education Icon Award 2018, Lifetime Achievement Award for seamless contribution in the field of education and training in 2020, Dr. Sarojini Naidu International Award in 2020. Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan Award of Honor was given to her for an educational commendation ceremony. She was also awarded the Mahatma Gandhi Indian Humanitarian Award 2020 on the occasion of Gandhi Jayanti and bagged the Visionary for Education in New Millennium Award 2011. She's the master trainer and an observer for the CBSE workshop and an expert for various workshops and seminars at Navodaya Leadership Institute and SCERT. And she is actively associated with NCERT to work on curriculum development and to assist school to implement them. Thank you so much, Radha ma'am, for joining us today. We are honored
to have you. Pleasure's all mine.
Ma'am, you have diligently mentored and empowered educators and strengthened teachers and student development. Your contribution from the school development plan to various projects, making drafts, strategies, guidelines, documents under education ministry is absolutely remarkable. I request you to kindly share your views on this decision with the impact on the performance of students. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming. Over to you.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Anil sir. Good evening. Seeing you after such a long time. And Stella ma'am, good evening to you too. And thanks to Sumit sir for giving us this opportunity and creating this platform where we are going to be speaking about the roadmap for the future without board examinations. For a very long time now, I think for as long as I can remember, since I got associated with education, I was very vocal about non-examination route to education. I was all the while trying to promote and intensify the belief that if you say you're getting educated, it's not necessary all the time that you've got to be taking an examination to show the world, show people around you that you are educated. I have been thinking very differently. I had a very different approach. But one thing, having said that, we need to understand that examinations have grown to extravagant dimensions, and they have their influence, which dominates the whole system of education, especially in our country. This is how it is. With the result that the instruction that is going on in the classroom, in the educational organizations, it is confined to the rigid framework, which is called the syllabus, the curriculum, and the prescribed course. So somewhere in doing this kind of an activity, the essence of education is muffled. We don't know where it is heading. So all forms of training which we do and which we don't, typically we have two. We either do some, we don't do some. Now what happens, everything that our curriculum permits, the way our system is created, which permits can be possible only in the written form, and everything that is outside this premise is neglected. So what is happening as a result? Like Sir said, mugging up. We have created an entire generation of youngsters, students of all ages, who are more into the rote memorization, and where it comes to real-time implementation, it's lost somewhere. We don't know where it is. They find it difficult to connect to reality. They can answer the paper only if the set questions are asked. If anything is asked beyond this, there is a huge challenge. And to such an extent, there is a revolt that we have people coming back to us and saying the questions were out of syllabus. You reword the questions, there's an issue as well. Why was it reworded? This was not done to us. The question had to be like this. This is what is given in the notebook, and that's all we know. So this is the kind of education that we are all wired to. And if I may remember, there was a report which was given by Dr. Zakir Hussain, and where he said the system of examinations prevailing in our country has proved a curse to education. And I think it's a big thing that a doctorate, a very well educated and an empowered individual needs to declare. As a former president, he could say this, that, probably this is actually, it's a curse to our education. And I think if we revisit the statement, we need to go for that kind of a change, that kind of improvisation, the transformation that is required to make children worthy for employment in future. We cannot be teaching like, multiple times I keep saying, we cannot be doing the same things in the same way and start expecting differential results. It's not going to happen. So now what happened here? In the wake of the pandemic, what happened? The board exams were to be done, but the pandemic being at the peak, the class 10 board exam, like Sir said, were cancelled. All of us know about it. And class 12 was postponed. And now what's happening? Now there's a lot of talk that's happening at multiple levels as to what is to be done to the class 12 students and their assessment. How are we going to declare results for these class 12 children? Class 10 somehow was managed. We have come up with a kind of, assessment criteria, which is shared with the schools. They work together with the city coordinators, the principals, and a lot of mentors, and they have generated something which is called as the passing criteria, promotion criteria, which is serving as a result. That is a result sheet for the class 10 students. But with class 12 students, it's a little different. It can't be the same. Why cannot it be the same? Like Sir has been saying, this class 12 happens to be a platform where the marks that are obtained by the student is going to determine where does he go for further education. Does he study here or there? What does he do? And for children who are going out of the country to be studying, this forms the basis for intake, the college intakes. So class 12 result is more important vis-a-vis class 10. So now, what is the next question? Should we have exams or no? Now, where are we heading? Class 10 called off. What about class 12? The question looming is, do we have it? If we need to have it, how do we have it? If we don't need to have it, what do we do? Are our colleges ready to take children without a formal assessment of achievement? Or there has to be some other mode of assessment where the children can be taken in? Now, what about this authentic and valid assessment? That cannot happen in such a short duration, which is going to create a result which is going to be of some relevance and used to the higher education institutions. So we need to have something which is going to be formalized, which is going to be authentic, and which is going to be a valid result so the children do not suffer hands-on. So when we're talking about this, we are having two things that are going to happen here. Either we take the examination, say yes to board examination, or we say no to board examination. Now, when we know a lot of states are hinging around the conduct of examination, if we decide not to have an examination, then we need to see how are we going to tweak the assessment result that we already have of our children. That is the next thing that we need to be doing. And how many of our higher education institutions are ready to accept that? And from the way things appear, there are not many takers who are ready to accept children without a formal result, which is created after appearing for the board examination. So it looks like board examination is going to be the way out, at least for the moment. So we need to be creating to see how we are going to be conducting the board examination, number one. But we need also to focus that with the pandemic and what the medical profession speaks about, the WHO and all these internal organizations also. COVID is here to stay. How will it stay? How long will it stay? In what form is it going to stay? What is going to be the impact? We are not aware of any of these things. I don't think even the medical fraternity is well aware of these kind of nuances. But one thing for sure, it's here to stay. So now whatever we do, we cannot wait for the pandemic to end to take an initiative, or wait for the pandemic to end and say that now I'll start thinking because the pandemic is gone. No, we need to be working our strategies around the existence of this COVID virus. We need to make allocations. We need to see, we need to make these changes that we need to our education system, to our ultimately to our examining system, that is going to empower us, that is going to make this assessment and the examination possible in times of COVID like this. And there's one segment I'd like to share, which is already talking about our delay in action. There is a feeling that probably we delayed taking an action a wee bit. We should have taken it a little in advance. Probably we could have avoided this delay. We could have avoided this paranoia that is surrounding our children of class 12. Now, ask class 12 children, what do they want? There is again a bifurcation here. There is one segment which says, just do what you did to class 10, we are okay with it. But there's another segment which is already preparing for a lot of competitive examinations and who've been very committed towards taking a board examination. They said that will be unfair to us. We worked an entire year. We've gone out of the way to get enrolled with the online classes. We worked very hard. We need to be examined. We want to take the board examination, come what may, whether it is online or offline. If offline is not possible, if there is an issue on that, we are okay with online examinations. Try and work out a platform, work out the modalities or the pattern of the examinations, and we are ready to take that on. So with children also being so vocal, and we need to appreciate another thing, we're talking about children who are about 17, 18 years of age. And today's 17, 18-year-old child is no longer a child. At one point of time, probably we said he's a youngster, bacha hai, 17 saal. No, it's no longer that situation anymore. Children of 17 in today's time, 17, 18-year-olds, they're young men and women. They understand. They have a very good understanding of what they want, how they want, when they want. Having that clarity and sharing that they want to take a board exam, I think it's fair enough. We need to give them a chance. But then looking at COVID, the protocol, the fear of being, what we can call it as a super spreader, we don't want our examinations being a super spreader. We know we've had instances, and we wouldn't like to create another instance where our board examination centers are becoming super spreaders. Now, when we talk of super spreaders, the segment which wants board exam, what do the children say? They say, no, last year you did NEET. Children did come on offline mode. They did come and it was conducted so beautifully. Why can't it be done one more time? So there are multiple possibilities as to what can happen at this point of time. And considering what can happen and what are the chances of what will happen, that is actually going to determine how and what is the future of examination, typically the board examination in our education system. Like we just said, we may have two options, yes board or no board. Now, when we talk about yes board, again, Sir has been talking a lot about it. Anil Sir has said too many things which I'd like to say, so I wouldn't like to repeat that. But one thing that I can tell you here is our class 12 board examination is a gateway for the student who is heading to pursue further education. So not giving him that opportunity probably will be stifling of educational rights. I don't think that will be the right thing to do at this point of time. If we need to probably do away with the board examination, it needs to be planned and needs to be done very carefully and needs to be spread over a period of time where we gradually change the mindset of the people. Then we have the curriculum which needs to be changed. Then we need to intensify what is happening at the school levels. So ultimately we lead and we are in a position to generate a result which is going to be acceptable by the higher education institutions. Otherwise, doing something randomly like what we did, the class 10 results, which is cancelled after a brief meeting that had taken place. But that cannot happen with class 12. Class 12 is more serious business. So having said that, we also need to understand the situation of hanging on, children are lingering for a while here, not knowing whether the exams are going to happen, they're not going to happen. I think limited and controllable anxiety and stress is acceptable, but the way children need to approach the system probably is to understand and to be prepared as if the exams are going to happen in a day or two. You've got to be ready for it at any point of time. So even if you're given a week, 10 days time to make sure the results are out at a time, and the children who are heading for education outside the country don't lose out. Because the other countries in the West or the other continents, they're not going to wait for our children per se. The children from India are going to come, they got delayed, or it's not going to happen. So if we need to be fair to those children also, we need to be taking a decision that is going to be super quick now. We can't be waiting and keeping children dingle-dangle, not knowing where they're heading. So having talked about how we need to be conducting ourselves, we also have another option when we're talking of having a proper examination offline. There is also a suggestion where we were told that probably we need not assist children in all the subjects. If they're studying in 5, the option was take a few subjects, the core subjects, which are related to the future line of his education, line of studies. Assess him only in those. So he doesn't come for 5 or 6 days. He's just going to be there for a couple of days. Come take the examination and go. And even that examination need not be taken for the whole 3 hours. Even 2-hour examination should be okay. And the CBSE has already cut down the syllabus by 30% to reduce the burden. So even the online teaching probably could accommodate a lot of the course that was given to him after reduction. So a lot has been done here. So I think if we can follow some COVID protocol and try to have an orientation of children and parents before they enter in offline, probably we should be able to conduct it at least at this point of time. We don't leave children in the lurch. What is the next thing? When you're talking about online examination, listen again, why do I know all this? Because, we have been, even at the CBSE front, we have been talking to a lot of schools. We've been getting a lot of online, concerns about the validity of an online examination, in the sense they feel the examinations will not be fair. They feel that the children probably could be fudging, they could be indulging in malpractices, so the result may not be authentic. Having said this, what is the next way out if the online cannot happen? If they're having concerns about this, then probably we need to devise a mode of examination where the children probably will not have too much opportunity to indulge in malpractices. Probably these MCQs people have been talking, you may have more options to probably indulge in malpractices when you're going to be having something as simple as this. Or in that case, then probably we need to be having the questions that are going to be encouraging children to apply the knowledge even as a part of your MCQ. So that needs to go on to the higher elevation levels. Like Sir said, that could all be in line with your SAT, then you have your CAT, all the competitive examinations that actually are working at that level. So we can go on to that levels, but then are our children groomed on those lines? Probably children go preparing for competitive examinations, yes. What about others? So in a country which is so diverse like ours, it's not easy. It's not at all easy. With that limited time that we have, it's going to be multifold difficult to come up with one system which is going to be happy, which is going to be suiting everybody. That may happen, may not happen. So I think we need to wait and see. Probably it's another week to go before CBSE and the Ministry of Education is going to come back to tell us as to what they think probably is the right way and the best possibility under the circumstances and the situations. Now, considering that we're not going to be having board exams, this is my favorite. Why should we have board exams? What is that 3-hour examination going to do? What is it going to tell you more than what you don't know? Since the children were with you for about a whole year in class 12 and class 1 to 12 with you, 12 years, did you not know your students? What is this assessment of just 3 hours going to do? Probably we could have assessed children regularly, continuously, more intensively throughout the year, so the child really knows what he knows. The child is aware of his competencies, and the child gets enough chance to optimize and maximize his potential. I say somewhere we lag here. What we need as a learning achievement and how we provide for that learning achievement. We want great results, differential results, but then are our children prepared to achieve at that level? I think that is a huge thing. And that needs to happen if you want a child to be excelling at that level without too much stress. I think the way they need to be tutored, the way they need to be taught, the way they need to be groomed, nurtured in the school from the beginning, that needs to undergo a small change. The way we are going to be having teachers engaging in the classroom environment, that needs to be modified. So we groom children who are not experts only in the core knowledge, but they are empowered with a lot of skills. In today's time, if you've gone through the NEP, it lays a lot of focus on skill building. There is a lot of importance that's given to vocational education. They're talking of no bad days, so children can indulge in a lot of non-academic activities per se. That's an option for you. So if that kind of an avenue has opened up, NEP has done the job for us. I think we need to embrace it, grab it with both hands, and start working towards that. And when we are going to be doing a curriculum which is going to be so enriched, I think then assessing children and evaluating and giving a grade which is going to be matching their achievement becomes very authentic and valid. We cannot give grades for things that we have not done, we have not indulged with our children. First, we need to do it. So when we assess them, we know our assessment is valid. Otherwise, it will be considered null and void. We can see all these things happen in many schools. Many schools, especially Ivy schools, they have projects that we say. Here, unfortunately, we say we are having project-based learning. But then what is happening in a project? You have theoretical questions given. Go there, look for answers for these theoretical questions, and it is stapled and given and said that's a project. So there is no query, there is no inquiry that has gone into it, there is no interpretation, there is no thinking that's gone into it. So it is just one document which is probably cut pasted from elsewhere and given to them, and it's in the name of a project. If we want children to be skilled, I think we need to get them to think beyond. They need to be taught to think. So when we are going to be assessing them for their thinking and application skills, which is exactly what is going to happen in your online examinations, where we're going to be checking them, we are not going to be getting them to write probably paragraphs and paragraphs and pages, unless of course it's necessary. We'd prefer not to do that because we want children to be able to think. We want them to be very successful in their higher education, their work ultimately. If they're not going to be skilled, probably getting into the application mode will be very difficult. Real life and higher education is not all just theory, mug and write. No, it is a lot of application. It is a lot of analysis. There's a lot of evaluation going in. You need to be creating, synthesizing. It's a lot of things which is beyond just knowing it, comprehending what is being told to you. That is just the beginning. And how you're going to use it will determine how you will be ultimately assessed. So when we're going to be giving these kind of options, that's when we can say that we are getting into a progressive curriculum where our children know how to think and respond, are ready for multiple modes of assessment. Now, when we're talking of assessment, we can have assessment even as learning. It can be an assessment as learning. So while the child is learning, there are opportunities that are created which can add on to assessments, which can be a part of your assessment. Then we can have assessment for learning. So you have assessments, you are assessing side by side where you are going to be enhancing opportunities and options for learning. So when we're going to be using multiple modes of assessment, we can say that the result that is going to be generated, the options that we have to generate, they become multifold and we get more realistic results. Then when we look at the result of this child, we can actually associate with what the child probably is, even if we don't get to meet him. By generating just a report card, which is talking about marks, like you have in the board examination, what you score in the 3 hours time is all that is reflected. So when you submit that kind of a document, we don't get to know about the kind of student that we are going to take in. That is exactly why when you go for this admission to foreign universities, you have to write an essay. You have to write, give a lot of evidence of the reason as to why you need to go there, join them. So if we had a system of assessment, which is not like this current assessment or your board exam pattern where 3 hours will determine what you are and what you're not. Like, you end up getting even 99 and 100 in class 12, which like Anil sir said, we never dreamt. We never knew we could get so many marks. If we made the assessment part more relevant, assess the child over the 2-year period, class 11 and class 12, come up with something comprehensive, which is going to talk more than the numbers that this child has secured, talk about his achievements in multiple levels, his cultural bent, how well is he when he is with his friends, his interpersonal skills. These are the skills that are required in future. Probably your marks may get you an entry into a good job or whatever, but then succeeding at work probably is not guaranteed by the mark list that you produce. And when the organization sees you not doing in relation to the marks that you have secured, immediately starts doubting your caliber, you as a student. Probably that will be a degradation of the kind of papers that you have submitted also. Because we've had many children who come back and say, no, I can't cope with that course, because he doesn't actually fit the requirements of that particular course. Probably if we had groomed him to think better, to write better, to reflect upon his information and lessons, probably it would have helped him achieve more. And the achievement which is coming through skills and knowledge with some modification of attitude is what is going to see you through over a period of time. So when we talk about education without boundaries, and when we talk about education being ubiquitous, we'd like to say that what is left in you after you come out of the classroom is that real education. And now if the marks are left in the classroom, what is left with you? And no skills are given to you. What's left? Zero. So probably under the circumstances, where are you heading? You may not stand a chance to score and gain well as you thought probably you would. So we need to quantify, we need to qualify the kind of assessments that we have. So not having one board examination is not going to be changing anybody's anything. We need to have multiple modes. We need to be doing many other things that are going to lead to a more authentic information about a student and his achievement. So we don't differ, and ultimately what we produce and what we showcase about the student is valid. Now, the next thing that we need to look in here at one point is, if this needs to become a reality, if now we need to be saying that, we are going to be creating assignments and evaluations, which are going to be not in the board examination pattern, that is from the beginning. Unfortunately, I don't know how many of you have heard of this. We have heard of many states, many schools where children from class 6, children from class 6 start preparing for that common entrance examination we call IIT entrance examination into engineering colleges and to many other organizations without doing a lot of other things. We are just focusing on the board examination and that examination that we call the school leaving examination, which probably is going to determine a lot. Lot is at stake. To reduce the stake and make it less stressful, we have all these initiatives which are laid down in NEP. Now we only are working on how it is to be implemented to make sure that the assessments and the board examination becomes low stakes. And to make it low stakes, we also have an option of a second chance in board examination. Like, you can take it one more time and the result that is best according to you probably can be done. But under the circumstances with COVID here, how are we going to do it? Like we said, just the two options. Either when things improve, if you can manage the offline mode of examination, you can do that. And as of now, this sounds very difficult. I don't think, offline can be a good option because children are not vaccinated. And with the third wave said to be impacting the young ones more than the older ones, I don't think it's a great idea to expose them. So that is one side. So when we're talking about the online examination, how reliable is the online examination is going to be, is what is waited to be seen probably when the decision is going to be taken and the announcement made on the 1st. So when we talk about no examination, more of education, I think we need to intensify our curriculum and the school front and the activities in the school to make sure that this part of learning is maximized. Swarup, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I must say it is indeed pleasure listening to you, ma'am, and such a wonderful, valuable inputs that we have got from you. We should focus on possibilities, alternatives in this situation. Looking at this situation, we should actually focus on this. There has to be a sync of school with higher education, which is absolutely required. And then your ideas related to
See, you don't.
Yeah, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Tell me. I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I was just recapitulating what I've learned, ma'am, and so your ideas related to yes board exams and no board exams are really absolutely helpful. And then you have emphasized on skills and applications that makes actually that these are really very important for students' growth. And then you focused on assessment as learning, assessment for learning, assessment of learning. Absolutely. And we should actually make the child, and groom them to think better, to learn better, and to be a good citizen of the country. And what is left in you is once you leave your class actually is the real education. Thank you so much, Radha ma'am, for your valuable inputs. Thank you so much. It was indeed pleasure listening to you, ma'am. Now, before thank you, ma'am. Before we invite our next panelist, I would like to just announce, if you want to ask questions to our respected chief guest and respected panelists, I request all of you to please use Q&A option. Write your question, and then we're going to pick questions, and then we're going to give you access to ask your question directly to your speakers. We're going to give you the access. Now it is the time to introduce our next speaker for the day, who is indeed an instrument of excellent leadership, Miss Stella Pauline Punitha.J. Well, Stella ma'am is the principal of Schram Academy, a CBSE school, Chennai, has been in educational landscape for more than 2 decades. She is a member of CBSE Affiliation Inspection Committee and CBSE Exam Observer. She is a resource person of Center of Excellence Chennai CBSE and also a member of All India Association of Educational Research. Her articles have been published in magazines like The Progressive Teacher, El Rock, The New Lean, and The Teacher Plus. She has received Women Empowerment Award in 2020 from the United Nations University for Global Peace, Best Teacher Award in 2019, and from West Chennai Sahodaya Cluster Schools, and Dr. Abdul Kalam Best Teacher Award 2016. Stella ma'am, we are honored to have you in this session today. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule. I request you to please share your suggestions on the best practices for internal assessments from a broader perspective with a futuristic vision. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, good evening. It's a privilege to share the platform with Anil, Swarup sir and Radha ma'am. And I thank the members of Indianica Learning as well. Yeah, before I begin, I would just share with you that it's a very different situation we are in. And I look at this as a big opportunity. And from what we heard, Anil sir spoke about the past, present, and future of education based on his experience as a former Secretary of School Education. And we heard Radha ma'am speak about the present and the future. And looking at the topic or the theme that has been identified for this evening session, it says it's the roadmap for the future without board exams. So I would have a slant towards the future without board exams. And I have a very small presentation to share with you all. So today, we are not going to decide whether we are going to have board exams or whether we need board exams, but this is an opportunity for all of us to deliberate on what is there before us and how we have to modify things as we move further. So as I said, the very first thought that crossed my mind was, this is an opportunity. In various ways, we have progressed. In all aspects, life has been made comfortable, but our education standards, to what extent have we progressed? I think that is something that we all have to think about with an open mind. And openness is the ingredient for the session that we had today. And so this is the opportunity. And I'm going to largely focus on the future of assessment. Now, some of you may think for class 10, the exam was scrapped. Why not for class 12? Now, I'm not the authority to give you an answer. And some of you might suggest that children have stayed in schools for 12 plus years. So why don't we assess them and give them their grades? Again, we are not there to make any decision. Rather, in the interest of the children and knowing the importance of higher education and the schooling, I think we have to have very clear ideas about how we help them secure a grade and leave school and enter into university. So the way I had identified my ideas to share with you, I just put them all together and call it as a future assessment and evaluation framework. And the whole thing is aimed at having the child at the center. Child is the focus. Now, 50 years ago, when we had entered schools, things were different. It was all teacher-centric, but we have changed. And why do we say child is the focus? And today, children are not coming to school to gain knowledge. They're all Googlers. They can be at home to get the knowledge that they require. But there is something more that children require for which they are coming to school. There are a lot of competencies and skills that they need to develop, which may not be possible sitting at home. So let us understand the background and prioritize the child and evaluate the situation. And I fully agree with Anil sir. Yes, if children are called for a physical examination, they have to be vaccinated. And to us, the health and safety of children are of prime concern. And we know the country would definitely stand by children if the examination system has to be done for all of them this year. So with this in mind, I'm going to give you a broad picture, and we are not giving you suggestions or, sorry, we are not giving you solutions. Rather, I'm sharing with you the different options that we have before us. And many of the countries, part of OECD, have all been working maybe 10 or 12 years ago on the framework of assessment and evaluation. Probably we had also been doing, but now is the watershed moment for all of us. As I said, this is the opportunity. Now, how do we grab this opportunity to modify the system of assessment? So to begin with, I would like to list down the factors that impact school education, that impact learning, that impact assessment. Yeah, children, as we know, they all belong to the 21st century. And all of us are from the previous century. And they're bright enough. As ma'am had earlier said, like, we all play the role of facilitators, not teachers, but because children know a lot of things in a lot of other areas as well. So we have to work keeping the child at the center. And there is a different educational trend. Now, NEP 2020 is released, and very soon we are going to implement them in school. So with these changes, it would be obsolete to follow the pattern of assessment or evaluation from the past. Again, assessment surely influences learning. When a child prepares for school exam, he prepares differently. When a child prepares for his competitive exams, he prepares differently. So we do know that assessment influences learning. So then how do we capitalize on this? How do we have better forms of assessment so that the learning is effective and all the learning outcomes are achieved? And another major aspect that we have to consider when we think about evaluation is standardization. As Sir rightly said, yeah, the process called moderation may not be an acceptable one at most times, but still, you know, we follow certain things for certain other reasons. So standardization has to be taken care of. And another important thing which crossed my mind when this topic was shared with me was, now there is a gap between school education and higher education. At most times, universities and colleges cry when children finish their first semester and when the results are out. They say children have not done much at school. On the contrary, we know children have slogged for close to 15 years at school. Then where do things go wrong? It means there is a gap. Have we really prepared them for their future education or for their future life? So now is the time, using this system called assessment, we can bridge the gap between secondary education and higher education demands. Again, time and frequency. Now, the time is very crucial. When do we conduct the assessment? And how often do we evaluate them? NEP gives the flexibility of assessing children twice a year. Probably things will change. Now, the present situation has made a huge transformation and a paradigm shift in school education, and which we never dreamt of 15 months ago. Today, most teachers are competent in using devices, gadgets, digital tools, and technology. So things will change. So the time of assessment and the frequency of assessment, they do matter. They do matter to a child. If we are willing to make things flexible, children will be getting the option to take it when they are prepared for the examination or assessment. And the other one which has to be factored into is logistics. And now today, the major problem that we face, the impediment before us, is the logistics. How do we organize? How do we bring children to school? How do we bring them to a center to take up the examination? So these should be factored into. And we do not know. We are talking about things on the 28th of May. What more challenges would we see in the next 1 month or 1 year? We do not know. So we should have a system with systemic changes which should be able to accommodate the challenges. So we have to have the foresight to see how things would be challenging and hence develop a framework that would absorb or accommodate many of these challenges. So these are the factors we should consider when we think about the framework for a future. And areas of assessment. As we know, today children are mostly assessed or evaluated on their content knowledge. Though we talk about skills, it's primarily the content knowledge on which they are assessed. And I think that is not fair because, again, to go back to NEP 2020, it talks about competencies. There are generic competencies, there are transversal competencies. Unless otherwise, we are going to evaluate and assess the competencies possessed by the children, I think our system of evaluation will be incomplete. So content knowledge is definitely necessary. Children should have knowledge about the subjects, the languages. Yes, it's important. In addition, we should also focus on the competencies. And also there are a lot of performance areas. Sometimes in schools, we find children who have not been doing well would be doing extremely well in life after 5 or 10 years. They have performed well. On the contrary, that was not considered in schools. So it's time now for us to look at the performance ability of children. And we should also go back to 21st century skills in understanding and developing and assessing them. Not only literacy and numeracy, there are a lot of additional skills which a child should be equipped with. Here, I would like to pause and say that when we are wanting to assess children on knowledge, skills, competencies, let's not forget that every teacher who handles children should be extremely knowledgeable, skillful, and competent enough, without which it will not be a successful one. And we should promote the culture of self-learning, because CBSE has the vision of making everyone learn for life or learning throughout their lives. So self-learning gains a lot of significance. And as mentioned, transversal competencies are definitely to be assessed in additional to generic and subject knowledge. So these are the ones which I felt are quite crucial in assessing children. And what are the modalities? Now, how do we take this forward? Now, we would have fanciful thoughts. We would have, things which we feel are very pertinent to evaluation or assessment. But how do we do it? How do we achieve it? Now, the possible modalities are conducting the assessment or evaluation at multiple levels. We can have different levels of assessment, and it can have different modes of assessment. And all these should be structured and should be built into the system. So when we plan a school year, we should know how and how many levels of assessment we are going to do and what are the modes that we are going to follow. And we have to very stringently have criterion-based assessment. So what is the criteria on which I'm going to assess the child as he learns the subjects or the languages and prepare them for their future? And performance-based assessment, this is not the same as criterion-based assessment. Performance-based assessment is different from skill-based assessment, and a child's ability to perform when he learns a subject. At most times they finish the practical exam, but when they leave school, they may not be able to even demonstrate a single experiment. So performance-based assessment also gains significance. And we are very much dependent on technology now. At least the last 12 months has taught us that we have to be technology oriented and extend this to assessment and evaluation. So we can definitely manage things using technology, and the digital tools and techniques will come in handy to make things possible. And of course, we should be proud that so many Indians have been doing so well in the area of software development. So developing an app, building a system which is robust for school education, for school assessment and evaluation is definitely possible. And the assessment has to be a continuous one. Children spend 15 years from kindergarten to class 12, but spend hardly 3 hours in taking up their examination. Unfortunately, it does not give a fair chance to everybody. So assessment has to be continuous. And as I had already mentioned, assessment or evaluation can happen multiple times in a year. And now they have stretched to 2 attempts in a year. So there are modalities which have to be looked into seriously. And coming to, like, we use fancy terms like the factors which have to be incorporated into the modalities. Now, how do we support schools and teachers? Of course, schools and teachers need a toolkit. And this toolkit is exclusively for assessment and evaluation. And the toolkit should completely give the guidelines to implement curriculum. Today, the teacher is so dependent on textbook to deliver the lessons. And children are equally dependent on textbooks. Actually, We can think of schools beyond textbooks. So how do we implement curriculum? How do we go beyond textbooks? How do we extend the learning in the classroom? So the guidelines should be available. And the list of tasks that have to be done at school or in the classroom for teaching, for learning, for assessment can all be made available. Of course, the rubrics for assessment, the criterion for assessment, these are very core when we talk about the toolkit for assessment and evaluation. And there are plenty of other assessment tools which a teacher has to be familiar with, because these are not going to be the same. As Anil sir had mentioned, we cannot use objective type questions when we think about assessing a child with respect to various languages. So different assessment tools have to be developed. And I'm sure that many schools already have tools in place. Probably we are in a very primitive stage to talk about assessment tools, but we are very soon going to see a lot more very, very meaningful and very much useful to teachers and to schools. So assessment tools should definitely be part of the toolkit. And why do we assess and evaluate children? At most times, children who finish class 12, they get your mark statement, they get the admission, and then we forget. On the contrary, there should be a follow-up, there should be an analysis, there should be a complete data management system which should go back to schools in helping teachers to implement the curriculum, to do their tasks well, to assess the children well. So this is should be a cyclic process, and it should go on, and it should have the provision to improve. So data management is very crucial when we talk about evaluation and assessment. It also gives ideas for the teacher. It also gives an appraisal for the teacher and the school. So part of this evaluation technique, we should also include data management. Next, let me detail the components of the assessment. We all know that papers that children sit for today have objective type questions. Objective type questions include different varieties. It may be fillers, it may be one word, it may be multiple choice, it may be choose. So there are different forms of objective type testing. And there was a question raised, somebody said, why should we have objective type testing, or why should we have subjective type testing? It should be a balance of both. The accuracy of knowledge can be understood by objective type testing, because most competitive exams depend on objective type tests. So let's have a fair a choice of objective and subjective type questions, because both are essential at that level, and children should be able to problem solve. Problem solving does not mean it is the ability of the child to solve the problems which are there in the textbook. It goes beyond that. And problem solving applies to all the subjects that they learn. And a very beautiful concept introduced by CBSE a few years ago was this portfolio, and I've modified it as e-portfolio. Portfolio actually allows the child to learn things which interest him or her, and have a record, have a document to prove that so much of additional learning had happened. So if you remember in one of the slides, I had said self-learning. So I'm relating self-learning to e-portfolio, and more importance can be given to this, and it should be original work done by the child, not taking material from the internet, but we allow children to have independent thinking, because thinking is a very important skill. We allow children to enjoy having that independency in doing things which they want, learning what they want, and of course, documenting the same for evaluation. So the culture of e-portfolio can be floated across schools. And then comes coursework. Some of the boards across outside India, they already have coursework. So toeing in that line, we can also have a coursework component which would bring down the rigidity of the board exam. And as mentioned by Radha ma'am, and as we all know, board is trying to remove this high stakes exam component from class 12. And yes, so then we should have alternate. So these are the possible ways to handle it. So investigations, like children can be given the privilege of doing investigative projects, which they are already doing, but probably it can be restructured to match to the present scenario. And case studies, questions are already there. We can have more case study options in their assessment and evaluation, even at the school level. And another important component is oral work. Of course, this is subsumed into the internal assessment, but the weightage and the significance that it gains is not so much. So I feel that a lot can be assessed through oral assessment, and children who have difficulty expressing them on a paper would be given the opportunity to be verbal in sharing their views and ideas. And definitely the assessment component should consider the competencies and also the performance levels of children. And then to talk about how do we manage, how do we evaluate, who would evaluate children if there are so many things to be evaluated? Yes, of course, the subject teacher has the key responsibility in preparing children to be evaluated. And to a certain extent, just like how we had been doing the oral component, the practical component with an internal and external examiner, definitely teachers from the school and other schools can be roped in evaluating children, and certain things can be done by the school and certain things can be done by the clusters. CBSE has Sahodaya clusters, and certain things can be done by the regional office, and certain things can be taken up at the board level. And we can also identify the national level experts who would be supporting schools in evaluating the children, and probably this would have a span of 4 months or 6 months, definitely not less than that, because if we have to assess 360 degree of a child, then it takes time, and it need not be reserved to the month of March and those 3 hours in the examination hall. So we will have a pool of examiners or evaluators, and not just one person is going to be there to evaluate the child at the end. And once the assessment gets completed, we have to maintain a lot of records. Of course, there should be continuous records, continuous performance records. Sometimes it may be descriptive, sometimes it may be with grades, and there should be consolidated grades available on a regular basis. And we can also think of multi-year progress card, where we get to find how children have done the previous year or the previous years, and there should be a possibility to track their performance. And when we talk about evaluation, as I said, it has an impact on learning. Like the child, the parent, and the teacher, and the school, all stakeholders would be very clear about how the child has performed and what the child needs. And so accordingly, support can be offered. So record maintenance is also part of the game. And I should say, all these would happen only if the school is prepared and only if the school can support. Primarily, it's the well-being of the child which should be taken care of. Today, we talk about examination, we talk about assessment, we talk about future of children. And though we are gripped with the fear of examination, the well-being of the child matters a lot. When I say well-being, it is not only the physical well-being, it's also the mental well-being of children. Here, I would like to share with you all, like we use the counselor of the school to the maximum. Like when I say well-being, it's not only the child, it's also the teacher and the parent. So in our school, we have been having sessions for the child, for children, for the parents, and for the teachers. And we understand where each one is, and we understand what support they require. And so we actually help them alleviate their concerns or problems or challenges or issues. And it has really worked well. And so I would suggest, like, the team of teachers should also be willing to work with the counselors, and children can be put one-on-one, or it could be mass counseling, but it really helps when we think about examination. And as we know, board has also released the app, and children also get the counseling from psychologists, and we can maximize the use of the presence of all these counselors. And school should definitely support with the learning, and not one way of learning. There are multiple ways to learn. And again, when we talk about assessment, children should have the practice. And there was one question which I read which said, children have not been trained for objective type. Why do you assess them? As I said in the beginning, we should have an open mind. Assessment does not mean whether it's going to be subjective or objective. It's about the content and the concepts that they have learned. So irrespective of what they are tested on, I think the school should help children to prepare. And finally, school should ensure that every child is helped to progress. So there are a lot of additional things allied with evaluation and assessment. And finally, moving forward, yes, let's be ready for the change, because the method of assessment will surely change. The quality of assessment definitely calls for a change, and we hope that it would improve with time. And flexibility is there at the door. And we will definitely have to integrate technology for learning and assessment. So moving forward, I appeal to all of you that openness is very much necessary, and we cannot be rigid with what we have been doing so far. We should be willing to accommodate a lot of things. We should be flexible enough to make things easy for the child. Only when we are resilient, we can go back to the child to support them. Otherwise, children would have a fixed mindset, which will not help them to perform well. So we have to break a lot of walls. And first of all, we should empower ourselves. We should equip ourselves to handle the generations to come. So with this, I conclude and thank Indianica for the opportunities to share my views. And I would wish you to stay prepared and wish everyone safe health and also success in the upcoming examination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stella ma'am, for this, I would say, indeed, a very comprehensive, detailed presentation. And it is absolutely going to give a lot of ideas, to our audience about how they can prepare themselves, better, for the future. Your assessment influences learning, absolutely. The framework that needs to be made to accommodate challenges. And then your points, suggestions on assessment areas to assessment modalities, from toolkit for assessment and evaluation to components, and for examinations and records and school support, absolutely are going to help our student, our audience and the teachers who are watching, and the people, principals, to make the better use of the time, and absolutely they're going to use it with a creative mindset. Thank you so much, Stella ma'am, for your valuable inputs. Now we are moving ahead for another interesting part of this webinar, which is question answers. I'm sure you are having a lot of questions now, and I just request all of you to please keep on writing your questions using Q&A feature. And you want to ask to a specific guest, to Anil Swarup sir, to Radha ma'am, and to Stella ma'am. So you may mention that in Q&A, and then we're going to pick randomly, and then we're going to give you the access to ask your question. And to start with, we have Miss Abha Gautam. Miss Abha Gautam from Sagar, who want to ask a question. So, Miss Gautam, please go ahead. You may ask your question. You need to, yeah.
Hello.
You need to be a little more louder in order to speak your question, Miss Gautam.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Hello.
Please ask your question, Ms. Gautam.
Yes, I just want to ask that it is okay that we will take the 12th class students assessment. What about those students, those who want to go in a medical line according to NP?
To whom your question is for? Like you're asking this question to whom?
And I just want to ask this question with Stella ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, I think NEP does not say anything about medical admission. A child who manages to do his secondary level education from school will definitely be prepared to enter into a medical course. And I really do not understand what exactly you were looking at.
Ma'am, they just say that they have to take the traditional subjects like math, chemistry, and biology. And if they don't have any chance to get a job and other things, so how it can be helpful for those students, those who want to go in medical line?
See, the number of medical seats are limited, and a child who is aspiring to do a medical program should equip himself, and it will not happen overnight. So aspirants should work to ensure that they acquire the knowledge, skills, and competencies from school and manage to clear the entrance, because we have the national level entrance body to conduct the examination and take students into various colleges. So the one who aspires for this should definitely be working for that. And there are a lot of allied medical courses. There are paramedical courses. So if it is not MBBS directly, probably they can look for the other medical courses which are available. And today the market is open. And, we are not deciding the fate of the child based on the degree he or she chooses to do. So that openness should be there with the parent community, teacher community, and with the child. So if somebody is wanting to do, they should work their way to achieve. Else they have to take alternate ways to stick on to those biology related courses.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Gautam, for your question. I hope it answered your question. And now moving ahead, we have Ms. Jyoti Singh. Ms. Jyoti Singh.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. A very good afternoon. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to put forward my question in this session. It was really a very enriching session, I should really say. Most of the questions were answered through the panelists. It was really nice to hear the answers, nice to hear everything. My only question is though Stella ma'am has already answered that there should be counselors, school counselors to deal with the mental stress which the students are going through. But I believe there are many students and many schools who do not have a counselor at their stage. Now, if we just ask a student about, a 12th class student, how is your preparation going on? The child says the saturation point is done. I don't know whether the exam is going to be conducted. How is your preparation? If the question is, then the child says, I'm not sure. I have forgotten whatever I had learned earlier. Now, how to deal with this mental stress when a school is not having a counselor? This question is basically, I would like Stella ma'am to answer this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope you're aware of CBSE initiative, where they have shared the details through a circular, and both the child and the parent and teachers can also approach and contact for getting any counsel. So psychologists are available. I will try to share the link with you so that you can also share it with your teachers across. So schools, which actually it's a mandatory one, CBSE schools should have a counselor. And sometimes we come across situation where teachers have a certificate or diploma in counseling. So we use some of our teachers also into this counseling program other than having an exclusive counselor. And you can check with teachers at the B.Ed level, somebody would have done, and you can make use of them. Otherwise, CBSE has shared the details through a circular. I'll just get the details and share with you now. So you can contact those counselors to seek help. The teacher, the student, or the parent can seek their support to keep the child, emotionally balanced now. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Right, because this question is really very valid, and may I request Anil sir to please share his views and expert advice on this, because nowadays after this decision there might be a mental stress of the students. So how students can deal with it, the teachers, parents, and then can bounce back in their life. So sir, if I may request you to please just say a few words about it.
As you are all aware that the national education policy talks of counselors, though I have often wondered that apart from CBSE schools, whether the schools will be in a position to afford those counselors. I have always been talking about the financial backing and the human resource that is required to get those counselors. But let us stick to CBSE schools at this point in time. I'm so glad Madam Pauline has actually clarified that there are indeed counselors available and they can be put to use. Now, this assumes extremely critical importance at this point in time. My personal concern, or whatever little exposure that I have had to school education, is not so much learning. The child will catch up. They're fairly smart and they will catch up. The problem is that we have somehow put the child within four walls and he hasn't gone out, met with his friends, interacted with them, and it brings an enormous amount of psychological pressure. Exams were always a pressure. I mean, I don't think exams now are going to be any additional pressure beyond the pressure they had. But the real pressure is their inability to interact with the friends and others who they could, a lot of pressure gets taken care of through such interactions, which is not happening now. And hence the importance of counselor becomes very, very important. And I'm glad that there is already a provision for CBSE schools. So I don't think CBSE schools are going to have a major problem in terms of counselors. Other schools, I have my serious thoughts, because I know for sure majority of the schools do not have counselors, nor do they understand the need for counselors. Of course, it's there in the policy, but not many schools do understand the importance of having counselors around. What can be done, which I thought that instead of engaging, and they should engage counselors, but if they are unable to do that, put a few teachers and train them as counselors. They can double as counselors, because that's not the best possible alternative, but that's an alternative that should be explored and taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Swarup, will I be allowed to share the circular so that the teacher would get the details?
We can share it, ma'am, after, if you can share it with us, and then
just
we can mail
screen. Just one screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she can make a note of this. So,
okay.
Yeah, whoever had raised the question on counseling, if they don't have counselors at school, this is the circular we had received from CBSE, and they can download the app and make use of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. It's really nice, you sharing this, ma'am, and thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti Singh, for your question. Now, at the same time, we are getting a lot of queries in our YouTube live streaming as well, and one of the question is there for Radha, ma'am. Radha, ma'am, a question for you, as being asked by Mr. Sharma, who is one of our viewers, at YouTube, and he's asking, what is the impact of cancelled board exams on the competitive exams and students aiming for universities abroad? Even the time between preparing for board exams and other competitive exams have been reduced, and still it's uncertain. Kindly advise how to prepare and on what students need to emphasize on. Radha, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. Having said that, we are on tenterhooks because we really don't know what is going to be the outcome of the decision that is going to be made on the 1st of June. But whatever it is, it will be in the best interest of the student, that is for sure. It's not going to put the children at risk. It's not going to cause panic. But I had mentioned even earlier, the way to go ahead now is to be prepared to take a board examination whenever it is declared, and the government, the government body, the Ministry of Education, has already made a declaration that they will certainly get at least 15 days time to prepare. So if you're more than about a half prepared, 15 days should be enough time to really catch up with the pending preparation and try and do your best. Where it concerns your admission to foreign colleges, the procedure is on, and the sessions generally begin August and September. And I think once the exams are done, the result will be out double speed. Like I said, it will be made sure children lose out on this pending decision. That decision is going to be certainly an impairment in your further plans. It certainly will be taken care of. But you have to be ready to be taking the board examination as it is announced. You may not get more than about 10 to 15 days to prepare, because the way it is heading, it looks like there is going to be a board examination with not change, with as many changes possible, because the decision is so late, it's pending, and it needs to be taken as soon as possible. So in this kind of scenario, I think it's best for children to be really prepared, children, be with them, support them wherever need, make sure they take examination at short notice. And we were talking about the circular on mental well-being. There is this provision which is Manodarpan. Okay, the CBSE facility is called Manodarpan. So Jyoti, I think she was having a query about the psychological, issues and counseling portal that is called Manodarpan. Okay, and like I said, sir, you need to get your children to be prepared to take an examination whenever it is announced. You won't get more than about 2 weeks' time for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I hope that Mr. Sharma must have got his answer. Thank you. Now, up next, we have Hajra Moinuddin. Hajra Moinuddin, I request you to please unmute and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the panelists for this informative.
Yeah, Ms. Moinuddin, you are not audible to us. There seems to be some network concern. I feel that we have lost the connection with Ms. Moinuddin. Are we audible to you? Your voice is breaking, ma'am. All right. Okay, up next, we have Mr. Mudassir Amin. Mr. Mudassir Amin. Okay. It seems like there's some network concern here. And let me move on with Ms. Sunila Bhatia. Sunila Bhatia.
Yes. Good
Hi,
evening,
good evening, ma'am.
to
Please go
everyone.
ahead.
Actually, my question is to Radha Ji. Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. The question is to Radha Ji that in this situation when, especially for government school children, the online and offline, both the solutions are not viable for those children. So she suggested many ways we could have done, but our children are still not ready to adopt those ways. So I was not clear what she has proposed the solution for this scenario. I mean, how the class 12 students would go about it.
So, Radha ma'am, may I request you to please.
Actually, I couldn't hear a part of the question, Swarup. Can we have a brief of what she wants to know?
Sunila ma'am, if you can please give a little brief about what you were asking. Sunila ma'am.
I am asking about it. Our government school students, how would they go about in this situation for students when they don't have options like neither offline or online? You have elaborated on that. What is the problem with both the?
Yes. Now, will they not be having these options where advice? Will they be having some handheld device?
Radha ma'am, if I may also request you to please put your video off, because there seems to be some network concern that I'm observing.
There is
not getting
here.
Yeah, so
is it okay now?
It is a little better, ma'am. You can
now. Is that okay?
The voice is breaking, ma'am. Actually.
Now, can you hear me?
It's not yet clear.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
now?
I can hear you, ma'am. Please go ahead.
It's not, no. What about Sunila? Can she hear? I think she'll be able.
It's breaking actually.
Sunila, can you now?
For me, it's breaking.
There is some network problem, ma'am. So if I may request our other panelists, if you can, or maybe Anil Swarup sir, I may request you to please answer this question.
Yes, okay. If he can,
Swarup,
yes,
sir, if you can please.
I could not catch the essence of her
so
question.
Sunila ma'am, if you can please quickly ask your question to Anil Swarup sir.
So in this scenario, how would that class 12 students should go about this examination? What is the solution now?
No, the solution is not with them. The solution obviously is with the government, who will take a call very quickly. They will take a call on whether the examinations would be held. If yes, then in what manner. This decision is yet to be taken. From children's point of view, a student's point of view, my only suggestion to all youngsters is, don't bother about issues over which you have no control. That is something which the government will decide. You be prepared for the exam, because in future in life also there will be exams that you will face for which you are not fully prepared. So be prepared for the exam as and when it comes, and you give the exam. If it gets delayed, postponed, that's not in your hand, in somebody else's hand. So keep preparing for your exams.
So no exam is not a solution.
In my personal view, no exam will create more problems. Maybe a modified exam would be better, because in future, these marks are taken into account for future courses also.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bhati, and thank you so much, Anil sir, for your answer. Now, we're going to take 2 more questions, because looking at the time constraints, we have limited time, so we're going to take 2 more. So up next is Adarsh Pandey. Adarsh Pandey.
Good evening to all of you.
Good evening, sir.
I want to ask Mr. Anil sir that what is CBSE planning to do for the next sessions, so that we can evaluate students on time and not face the same situation like this one in the last year.
Now that it has happened for 2 years in succession, I think now CBSE would work out an alternative mechanism. Now they have a full year before the next exam comes. And I'm sure they're going to use technology and come up with an alternative way of assessing children in case COVID problem continues. So I would believe they would work on it and come up with an alternative solution.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a person from DPS Ella Varkuzali. May I request you to please unmute and ask your question?
Yes, good afternoon all. First of all, let me congratulate all the 3 speakers. They spoke very well. I got so many doubts clarified. And my question is now, in the 750 people meeting itself, we are getting so many problems with the internet issues. If we are going online exams, among the 3, anyone can give me answer. If you are going online exam, during the exam, board exam, If a child leaves the meeting and joins after 5 minutes or 10 minutes, how do we going to evaluate the child's paper?
All right. May I request Stella ma'am to please answer this?
I think there are a few things which have to have a margin. First of all, we assume that in case the technology is used for assessment, there would be possibilities to accommodate that. And online option should also be available offline, in the sense like we can use a Google Sheet online and offline, or you can use an app and online offline. So there will be multiple options to get connected with the technology, and the technology as such should be robust to handle such problems. So we cannot assume that the entire country, so many lakhs of children would all be using the device and they would be absolutely no hassles at all. We cannot assume it that way. So there would be a margin and there would be ways to handle these things which will be well integrated into the system of assessment. So until the beta version is completed and until the trial and run is done, I don't think so they would scale it up to a larger level. Of course, it will take time. And so we assume this is the responsibility of the board, and they would have the IT team to create and develop modules for assessment which would be robust. So which we only time would answer this. And we hope that the expertise India has, we should be able to handle such things, because this would be the future, and this hybrid system of evaluation will continue to stay with us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Stella ma'am, and thank you so much, ma'am, for your question. Now, we are in a lot of questions, but because of time, we cannot, continue the Q&A session. But yes, I request all of you, in case you have any question to be asked to our speakers and to our chief guest, you may write to us at marketing@indianica.com. I repeat, marketing@indianica.com, and then we will be back with the answer. Now, if I may request Mr. Sumit Gupta to please join us again for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Swarup. It has been a wonderful session when we learned a lot of things, a lot of questions got answered. I have my daughter, in class 12, so a lot of concerns there as well. So many options coming in. So it was really a wonderful session and learning. Thank you, Anil sir, for taking out time and enlightening us by sharing your views on the board exams and sharing the importance of the assessment. I just like to say, sir, when you said assessment should not be for the exam, I mean, we should not be reading for the exam or studying for the exam. So even when we discuss internally, many times I think, are we today, is the object of education learning, or the L is missing somewhere and it's only earning? Because even when I was studying, so we heard our parents say, study hard, get good grades, and get a good job, and life is made. So the student hears that only. Now, when we hear those kind of diverse views, that is what gives us, yes, this system needs to change, and it needs to focus on learning that rather than, just getting good marks. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and valuable inputs. Thank you, Mrs. Stella, Pauline, ma'am. It was a wonderful presentation. I've taken a lot of notes. So it's really very encouraging that we have to have the board exams, and we have to also think for the future rather than just focusing on this year, what is happening. It's already kind of a past, and we have to focus on future, what we can do there. Thank you, ma'am, for taking out time out of your busy schedule. Thank you, Radha ma'am, for your time and valuable inputs. It's great learning again on the assessment and the need, which is there. We need to have a different focus, actually. It has to be child focus, and which
Absolutely,
ma'am also said. So thank you so much, our chief guest, Shri Anil sir, and both the panelists, speakers. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sumit sir. And again, thank you so much to all the speakers, Shri Anil, Swarup sir, Radha ma'am, and Stella ma'am, for your valuable inputs and suggestions.
thank you.
Listening to all of you has been a delight for all of us. And also to our wonderful audience, it's been pleasure with all of you today. Thank you so much for your active participation. The questions asked by the participants were really relevant. Stay tuned and connected with Indianica Learning for our upcoming webinar under Learning and Education Leadership Talk Series. Once you leave this session, there will be a feedback form link, will be visible on your screen. I request you to please fill the feedback form, give us the feedback. There's one thing which I would like to say that, that one thing that we have learned over the past few months is that we all possesses an indomitable spirit and will always find ways to make the best of a situation. So the cancellation of board exams or any changes in it will not dampen the spirit of students, teachers, or parents, but it'll enable us to prepare for unforeseen circumstances and face the future with optimism and hope. Good luck to all the students, and we wish all of you a bright, bright future ahead. I, Swarup Beniwal, signing out for the day. You please stay safe, please stay at home, please be happy, and you all have a wonderful life. Thank you so much. Namaskar.